Welcome back to the channel. If you're passionate about staying ahead of global politics and the most urgent news stories, you're in the right place. In this video, we'll break down the top global events from March 17th to 21st, 2025 that you cannot afford to miss. From escalating conflicts to massive economic shifts and diplomatic maneuvers, the world is on high alert. Before we dive into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated with our weekly breakdown of the most important world events. Now, let's jump straight into the most explosive stories shaping our world today. 1. Gaza conflict explodes, civilian toll rises. The violence in Gaza has reached new heights this week. Starting on March 17th, Israel and Hamas saw an intense flare-up in hostilities following a failed ceasefire attempt. Reports suggest hundreds of casualties, most of them civilians, as Israel continues its airstrikes while Hamas retaliates with rocket attacks on Israel's cities. The global response is a mix of condemnation and calls for urgent action from the United Nations to de-escalate the violence. However, Israel insists on protecting its borders and countering Hamas threats, while neighboring countries like Egypt and Jordan have stepped in to mediate peace talks. But the situation remains extremely volatile. Why it matters: this crisis is not only a humanitarian disaster, but also a geopolitical one. The Middle East's fragile peace could face severe setbacks if this conflict escalates further. 2. Russia and NATO, nuclear tensions soar. Russia's nuclear ambitions have dominated headlines this week. On March 19th, the Russian government announced it would deploy nuclear weapons in Belarus, a direct challenge to NATO's expansion in Eastern Europe. This bold move follows a series of provocations from Russia, ramping up military tensions in the region. The response from NATO has been swift, with the US warning that such actions could bring the alliance into a new arms race, one that could have catastrophic consequences. The question everyone's asking is the world on the brink of a new Cold War? With both sides digging in their heels, the stakes have never been higher. Why it matters: Russia's nuclear escalation is deeply concerning for global security, and it raises the risk of a larger, more dangerous confrontation. 3. Economic crisis alert, US markets in trouble. On March 20th, the US Federal Reserve made a controversial move by raising interest rates, again to try and curb inflation. This decision has triggered panic in the markets, with major stock indexes falling sharply, causing concern about a potential economic downturn. This announcement has sparked fears of rising costs for households, businesses, and global trade. But that's not all. Unemployment rates in the US are creeping up, and consumer confidence has plummeted to levels not seen since the Great Recession. Many analysts are now warning that the global economy may soon be heading into a recession, impacting everyone from the UK to Asia. Why it matters: a global recession would hit many countries, especially developing ones, the hardest. This economic shockwave could have lasting effects worldwide. 4. China's expansion in Africa, new alliances or neocolonialism. On March 21st, China secured an extensive new trade deal with several African nations, pledging to build major infrastructure projects across the continent. The Chinese Communist Party, CCP, is now positioning itself as the dominant player in Africa's economic development. But this has raised alarms in the West, with critics accusing China of neocolonialism, exploiting African resources while increasing its political influence. Some African leaders, however, are celebrating the financial and infrastructure boost, as China promises to fund everything from roads to energy projects. Why it matters: China's increasing presence in Africa is reshaping the continent's political landscape and challenging Western influence, which could have global consequences for trade and diplomacy. 5. Climate change alert, UN's dire warning for global leaders. In a game-changing announcement on March 18th, the UN Climate Change conference revealed that the world is failing to meet the Paris Agreement's emission reduction goals. The international community is falling short of its targets to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And the UN warns that if immediate action is not taken, the world will face unprecedented environmental crises. From floods to droughts, wildfires and food shortages, the climate emergency is no longer a future threat, it's happening now. Governments, especially in the global north, are being called to step up their climate action. Without rapid reductions in carbon emissions, the planet could be headed toward a point of no return. Why it matters: climate change is not just an environmental issue. It's a security issue. If left unaddressed, it will exacerbate conflicts and destabilize regions globally. 6. Ukraine crisis: the fight for survival continues. The Ukraine conflict remains a dominant global issue. On March 20th, Ukrainian President Zelensky called for increased military and financial support from Western countries, warning that without foreign aid, Ukraine's survival would be at risk as Russia intensifies its offensive in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. But as the war drags on, there are growing concerns that Ukraine could become the next Afghanistan, with endless conflict and suffering. Despite these challenges, Ukraine has shown resilience, and the West continues to back its efforts with military supplies. Yet, the question looms: how long can the international community sustain its commitment? Why it matters: the Ukraine crisis is reshaping European security and challenging the global order. It also raises important questions about international law, sovereignty, and military intervention. That's it for today's Global Affairs Breakdown. From escalating conflicts to economic instability and climate change, the world is facing serious challenges. These events are more than just headlines, they are shaping the future of our planet. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss next week's update on the latest world events. And if you think your friends should know about these stories, be sure to like and share this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week for more eye-opening global news.